Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get through this thing called Mix CD. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I love making Mix CDs. Each week, we give our guests a theme and an 80-minute time limit for which songs they're going to pick for their Mix CD. Nope, starting the recording now, because otherwise I'm gonna keep tinkering with this. Okay, this week we're talking about covers of songs. Another very broad topic because this can encompass a lot of different things. And I think as both of us discovered, there are some songs that we picked that was like, oh, this was oh, I didn't realize that this wasn't the cover, or I thought that whatever. Excuse me, there is a lot to think about with this. Jesus, hold on. Starting off strong right off the bat. All right, let's do this. So I have brought back my playlist aficionado, my frequent collaborator, my fellow Sif Pop writer, and good friend, Patrice Downing, to help sort through the chaos that is covers of music. So Patrice, welcome back. How's it going?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me because this is by far one of my favorite wild eclectic categories for making a playlist.
So as you kind of zeroed in on this as a topic to want to talk about, what was the process here with this? Because
There were some
like
I instantly knew I wanted to put on here because there's bands that I only discovered because they did a cover of a song I liked. So there's definitely a lot of love for this category in general because it does encompass so many different genres and so many different decades of music.
mhm,
And I've always kind of liked the reimagining of a song from the 60s being done in the 80s, a song from, the 80s being done in the 2000s. Like it's cool when a band puts its own spin on something and it's familiar but different. I mean, some of them are also I like when they do it similar enough, but it's just distinct enough to know that it's that band doing it. That I find kind of cool. But for the most part, I think I kind of whittled down what was an enormous list into one that was more representative of what I feel the value of doing a cover is, and that's making it your own and making it fun and not being like, oh, it's not like remakes in movies where like, God, why did they do that? Like, I love when a cover of a song is, oh, I'm so glad they did that. So, and just as someone who went to a lot of concerts in the late 90s and early 2000s, there's a lot of covers take place at concerts. So I
mhm,
kind of like, I love that vibe of it where you never know what a band is going to play when you're actually at a concert because even though it's not a song that's been on one of their albums, they might like another artist and, they're paying homage to that artist is trying to do their own interpretation. I've always found that really cool.
mhm,
So, part of the reason I wanted to do covers is because it kinda puts me back in that time frame and feeling of just excitement over hearing something different from a band that you kinda know what to expect with, but then they'll come up with something like we're gonna talk about where it's like, "Oh, that's so cool that I wouldn't think that that artist would have listened to the other artist and, decided to do that song like that."
Yeah, there's a fair amount of songs on here that I did get from movies. And like this is going to be a slight extension of our songs from movies playlist,
For
which
sure.
by the
Mine's
way,
a
by the way, go listen to that episode. It was great. That's called Synergy.
Woo!
So and some of these it just, I got just by, just listening to, just looking through playlists and just being like, oh, I do like this. And then I think for me, the discovery that some of these songs were covers, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, like, and then you go down a rabbit hole and be like, well, what else was, or who else has tried to remake this song? Because some of these songs I have on here are pretty iconic. And whereas like some of the other ones are like, like I never would have thought that this song would have been right for a cover, but
Right.
they pulled it off. And That's something that I think is really cool. I've got a couple on here that are going to garner some form of explanation because I'm sure for the listeners out there, they're going to be like, really? Like
Right?
you picked
Oh, you're not
that
you're not
one?
alone there. I
So,
definitely have a few like that too. I mean, but just like last time, I had to give myself a lot of rules to be able to rein it in because otherwise we could be talking till next month about covers.
so what were some of your rules then?
So, first hard fast rule I had to do was only one per artist because you've got it seems that once you actually start diving into covers, you find that certain bands like to do covers. I mean, we've
Hmm.
got an entire Teal album by Weezer. You know, you've got a couple of these other artists, like there's an acapella artist I'm going to be telling you about in a little bit that does nothing but covers for the most part. A couple other groups that do nothing but reimaginings of other songs in different genres. So I wanted to try to keep the list like I didn't want it to be like all one person or a big chunk of all one
Hmm.
style. So I wanted to keep it kind of true to the fun of the list by having it be a lot of different stuff. So it's not all just let's listen to six acapella versions of songs from the 80s.
Yeah. So let's address the acapella thing right off the bat. It's I kind of had I kind of had a similar rule when it came to acapella covers is because look, there's a lot of great acapella stuff out there, and that within itself,
Oh,
you
easily
know,
could be its own list without even trying.
well, unfortunately
Just
for
saying.
you,
Take a note.
songs.
This is
Um,
what we call a teaser, guys.
yeah, yeah, stinger for what's to come. So I did have a lot more a cappella songs on here originally, but
Yep.
then I was like,
Yeah,
you
I kind
know,
of did the same. I whittled down from those to kind of not have as many, so it did have more different genres involved and different types of reimaginings. So then another role I kind of gave myself because it is a playlist and going back to thinking about how burning a CD used to be, I wouldn't have been able to find a lot of these songs to burn onto a CD, so I kind of eliminated performances from like award shows because like there's all kinds of cool things from those like Kelly Clarkson doing "I Will Always Love You" on the CMAs, and like there's also ones from like TV shows. Like there's just really awesome cover that Ben Vereen and Wayne Brady do on "How I Met Your Mother" of "Stand By Me."
hmm.
Like there's really cool like when you actually start thinking about all the different like the Leighton Meister does this really amazing cover of "All I've Got to Say" on an episode of The Orville. Like it's just there's a lot of really great covers of songs worked into TV. And then that's not even touching on like things like Glee, where I could do an entire playlist of the top 80 minutes of Glee covers. Like they've put out their own albums for a reason. Those covers are
Yeah.
great. So I kind of just to be able to get it to a more manageable list, I took off that. And then I also didn't use anything that was straight up from a movie musical like De Lovely where every song on that movie is a cover of a Cole Porter song because I feel like that not that there's anything wrong with us using covers of songs from musicals on this list, but I feel like because they're so different in and of themselves, because most of them are telling stories and most of them are part of a bigger picture, that doing a list of those kind of lent itself to its own little playlist. So
Hmm.
I kind of got down to mostly just songs where they might be used on a soundtrack, but they weren't a soundtrack of a straight up musical where the song is telling a story with the exception of one, which I
Hmm.
had a very specific reason for using.
Yeah. There were the going back to something that you said earlier, the sticking with one band per, per cover. So there was a couple on here that I had, and then in hindsight, like I ended up taking them all off because I was like, I can't choose between these. So bands like Boyce Avenue, who they mostly all they
Mhm.
do is acoustic covers and softer versions of songs,
Yep.
which I was like, I love all of these, but I can't pick. It's just too much. And then for like I narrowed it down and I said it needs to be on Spotify as well. Like
Right.
I can't just like want to add something into
Mhm.
Spotify, or I cannot, you know, I'm not going to take something from YouTube that
Right.
I really liked. So for example, one cover that I think I found on YouTube or I think is available. or maybe I downloaded it somehow, legally or otherwise, I guess, was there's a version of Time After Time by Matchbox 20
Mhm.
that, they just kind of riffed on during a concert. Like, oh, okay. That's that's cool.
It's cool, but when it's not a bonus track on an actual album, you can't find a studio version of it that's kind of something that you would have burned anyway. So that's
mm,
kind of like, yeah, I felt the same way. Like I was
mm,
trying to keep it to the nature of like what we were, we're making our list of songs that you could actually find and burn
mm,
onto a CD.
yeah.
So yeah, everything I've got is stuff that is on Spotify and that I do have an 80-minute Spotify playlist of.
And then I guess the last criteria that I looked at for covers is that I I tried to find something that I have a story to. Like
Mm,
I didn't want to just be like we talked about this earlier.
yeah,
It's like the cover's good. I
they did
like
a
it.
good cover.
It's it's better than the original. All of these have some, significance or some story behind it.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to just be like, I like it.
Right,
It's
yeah, I didn't want it to
good.
just be you and me sitting here saying, "Hey, they did a good cover of this. Hey, they did a good cover of this. Oh, you know what? They totally did a good cover of this too." Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm glad we're both on the same page
for
with
sure.
that. My original list for this was pretty long, and I was talking to Patrice beforehand about last night before we recorded this. I was like, "Oh, I forgot about this," and then went down a rabbit hole and then fell asleep. And I ended up not editing. I'm, you know, editing it like on the fly. And like I started the recording because I'm like, I can't keep editing this because there's a lot to go through with this, which means that this could be right for a volume two. And
For sure.
that's,
It's a big
a-okay.
cat there's a lot of songs. It's a big category.
So, all right. How many songs did you come up with?
21, baby.
I got 20 in this case. So,
I
what
I got lucky on the length of a few where I was able to, and then I specifically, honestly, a couple of the hard cuts I made were like the Fugees covering "Killing Me Softly." That's over
uh
5 minutes. I could get
I
two other, and if you
it
kept it, that's why you got 20
I
and
d-
not 21.
I did. We'll get to that
All
soon
right,
enough. So, all right. Why don't you kick us off? Why don't you go
start with my
with your
first list of four,
let's go with three. Let's
three.
start
Okay,
with your first group of three. So,
so
uh, what'd you pick?
unsurprisingly, I'm starting off with a Smashing Pumpkins song from 1996. I found this song when the Airplane Flies High box set came out. My favorite song on that box set was on the Bullet with Butterfly Wings disc. The second song is a love ballad written by James Iha, who doesn't normally sing. It's usually Billy Corgan vocals. And
Hmm.
I listen to that song all the time. But the song that came after it was a cover of a Cars song from 1978 called "You're All I've Got Tonight." And I love Billy Corgan singing this song. I mean, he's got a very distinct voice.
Yes,
They've
he
got
does.
that, it's that very late 90s, like, alternative sound to it. The original's great, but I like how this feels very 90s and still the song. Like it's not like you're listening to it and not realizing that it's not their original song. Like if you're familiar with the songs from the 80s, like and you knew the Cars, like in the like from the late 70s,
Hmm.
then it's a cover. But I just like how I like how I found it accidentally and then ended up just accidentally listening to it all the time and loving it. So, because back when I got the CD, unless I had a remote for my CD player, I'm listening to the whole disc until I get up again. So
Hmm.
that's how I ended up listening to the song all the time because I'd typically start by listening to the song before it. And
Yeah.
then just unless I got up or had it on repeat or something, I'm listening to this. So I thought it was kind of a fun way to find a song. But they have another cover that I had to cut. The first song I put on this playlist when we decided to do it was actually their cover of Landslide. But I felt like a lot of people have probably heard that and didn't really realize they have other covers. Like even
Mm.
on the box set, they have other covers that are just a fun rendition if you like Smashing Pumpkins and you like music of that time.
Mm.
So my
All
second
right.
one is like totally different too. Like here's where like this playlist is so cool. Like
Hmm.
they're just so wildly different from
Okay.
song to song.
All right. Let's hear it.
So my
What do we got?
next one, if you I I'm gonna guess you've probably heard of them, but maybe not everyone listening has. Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox. Tell me you've heard of them. They're amazing. Oh my gosh, they've got hundreds of covers. They tour America, they tour Europe. They do covers of any song, like songs from 80s, 90s, today, whatever, but in styles from 20s, 30s. Like
Oh,
they'll do,
so
yeah,
nope,
it's,
nope.
oh my
I've
gosh, it's so cool. They're a huge group. They've got people coming in and doing a song with them all the time. It's a big ensemble of musicians of all kinds. They've got woodwinds, brass, violins. Scott Bradley plays the piano. He doesn't just arrange everything. They have tap dancers come in. So the tapping is actually part of the song when you listen to
mhm,
them this way. So, because it's such a huge variety involved, like it could sound like a Torch song, it could sound like a 20s Flapper song. Like it's just, they do really cool stuff with the arrangements on these. But my
mhm.
favorite from them is actually Wayne Brady doing Thriller. And it's so cool because it's a 1930s inspired version. It kind of looks like he's got a big band behind him with the old school like shells in front of them and stuff. And they've got two tap dancers that come out, and they're kind of dressed like 20s flappers zombies.
Oh,
And but the
nice.
tapping actually is like instrumental in the song.
Mhm,
So it's really cool. And if you've never heard of Postmodern Jukebox, it's really worth checking out. They've got some really cool videos online because they actually make the videos look like of the time that they're covering the song
mhm,
for. And a lot of people that like have been on, I don't watch any of those shows, but I found out that like American Idol, America's Got Talent kind of people like that have been on those. A lot of them have gone on to be singers and tour with them. So I know Haley Reinhardt's, I guess, probably the biggest name that's
mhm.
gone to be part of this group. So like she does all about that bass with two other singers and a
Oh,
guy who
nice.
plays the upright bass during the
Oh,
song. So that one's like a really fun one because you hear like the bass is the star of the song.
right.
But yeah, they're really cool. And they've got another chick. Her name's Gunhild Carling. She plays 10 different instruments in one song. And I would have picked that one, but being an audio only playlist, you wouldn't appreciate the fact that it's one woman playing every instrument and singing and tap dancing. And by the way, one of those instruments is the bagpipe. Like, this
Jeez.
isn't like she is wildly talented. She's one of those people that can play three trumpets at once.
Oh my God.
Like, and they have a
That's
lot of people like that throughout the course of the time they've been doing this. So
mhm,
it's really a rabbit hole that you will go so far down the first time you discover them because it's everything from like a torch sounding version of Radiohead's Creep to like, Britney Spears, Oops, I Did It Again being
mm.
sound like it's from the 30s. It's really cool.
See, and something like that is so cool because you don't hear very many people doing stuff like that. So, and part of the reason why I started this podcast in the first place is the realization that I need to expand my musical taste a little bit as some of the people that I host trivia for on Wednesday nights are like, "Didn't you play this like already?" I'm like, "Probably because I've been hosting here for like 5 years, so like
Right.
inevitably I'm gonna repeat songs, but I need to expand a little bit in that respect. So this will hopefully be a pleasant discovery. I did want to go back really quick to the Smashing Pumpkins. I'm not a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan.
Oh,
And
that's unfortunate.
it is unfortunate. And I think I think I need to rephrase that because as I've kind of discovered that there are certain bands that are not my jam,
Mhm.
maybe it's the band is not my jam. Maybe I've just not found my proper entryway. So if if a cover could be a good way to possibly get me into them, then I will take that and see if I can figure out where to go from there.
I think there's certain bands too where it depends on the time you found them. Like I found Smashing Pumpkins at the right time. I was in high school, like, and that was like basically the height of where their popularity in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like that's as good as it got for them, before they started kind of breaking up and things like that and changing members and all that. But it was late 90s. I was in high school. Alternative and stuff was like it wasn't any hotter at that point than it was going to
Mhm.
get, for that genre. And I
Yeah.
was able to see them live and see a lot of the other bands that were in those genres live. So I think because of that, obviously, I'm going to have a special fondness for them
Hmm.
because I literally remember waiting in line overnight to get tickets to see them.
Yeah.
So, like the only time I ever actually like lined up the night before because I was definitely going to that concert. Like there was
Hmm.
no ifs, ands, or buts. Like I was going.
Yeah.
So like yeah, they just I've always like they're a band that I can turn on anytime. Like them and Red
Hmm.
Hot Chili Peppers are an anytime listen for me. And I could
Got it.
just do a random mix of their stuff or I've got mixes of both. Like I've got playlists that are just Smashing Pumpkins and just Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I also it's one of those where I can turn on a couple of their songs and then whatever Spotify recommends based off of that, I'm usually very into.
Mm.
Like with those 2, it's always like it knows me.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about the kind of the significance that Smashing Pumpkins has brought to just music in general. And also, as somebody who lives in the Chicagoland area, I feel like I'm contractually obligated to like Billy Corgan, uh, and just the band in general. Same thing, kind of like I have a similar relationship with the band Pearl Jam as
Mhm.
well. Like, just I found a handful of like Pearl Jam songs that I like, but overall, I'm like, I'm good. So, but like for certain bands that you're not really a huge fan of, a cover is a great way
Mhm.
just try them out and see if there's something there that you could be like, well, I like this song and I like this version of this song. So I like all of this to say to go back to the Smashing Pumpkins one, that I will give this a shot and then I will report back and say, like
Yay.
I will see if I can expand a little bit because there are a handful of Smashing Pumpkin songs that I do like. Like there's Cherub Rock on
Mhm.
Guitar Hero and Rock Band was like huge for a
Yep.
while. I love the song that the Smashing Pumpkins had on the Batman and Robin soundtrack.
Yep.
The end is the beginning is the end,
Mhm.
and then there's the one that's the beginning, the end is the beginning, or whatever.
Yep.
So I
Yeah,
will.
they definitely and their even though their sound kind of evolved, it still kind of stayed consistent to have like you know a Smashing Pumpkins song before you hear Billy Corgan's voice. I mean,
Yeah.
once you hear him, obviously. He's got that distinct sound.
Mhm.
But I think it's cool that they're just one of those bands that has a lot of different even just within the Melancholy album, you've got
Mhm.
2 discs worth of songs that don't all sound the same, and it starts off with a beautiful instrumental piece on the first track, and it's, like, so unexpected, but so them at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What's your third song in your first?
It's a '98 cover by Orgy of New Order's 1983 Blue Monday.
That actually was my final cut. My
So,
final cut.
this was on a lot of soundtracks for a while when
I
it first came out. I
love
love it.
this version. Is it better than the original? That's tough
That's a
to
hard one.
say.
Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the ones where it's not a clear cut, "Oh, yeah, I love the cover better." Like, that one's definitely one where I appreciate both very much, but
Mhm.
it was on the I Still Know What You Did Last Summer soundtrack, and then it was in Not Another Teen Movie
Yep.
in
Hmm.
'98, which I think is probably where I actually heard it first, was
Hmm.
watching Not Another Teen Movie. So, which I initially had this for our soundtrack list, but because it was physically released like a couple months before the movie came out, I just went ahead and was like, "Oh, great, I can save it for this."
Yeah.
Because it's a fun cover. It's got a lot of angst to it, and that's
Yes.
why I think it
Yes.
was perfect for those 2 movies. They're teenager movies,
Hmm.
and like it feels like it belongs on movies for teens.
I have so kind of in the similar vein because you've got 80s, like a lot of 80s songs are ripe for covers.
That's
Um,
half my list
and
easily.
And particularly with 80s songs, I think one of the things that I appreciate about some of the covers with it is that bands of different genres, take their swing at it and see what they can come up with. So I like later on in my list, I have a kind of like a rock version of an 80s song that, like it works. They make it work. So in regards to this song, this to me was a big TRL song. Total
Yes,
Request Live.
all the
This
time.
ended up like this was a big music video. Admittedly, that by all accounts, this might have been their only hit to some
I think it was
extent or
definitely
another.
their biggest hit. I mean, they really
Yeah,
didn't have a whole lot. Like, I'm trying to think. There was another song that came out around the same time, but that's the thing. I can't even remember which one it is.
yeah,
And I'm sure I was listening to it, but Carson Daly was telling us about this every day in the
mhm,
afternoon. So,
yeah.
and I wasn't complaining.
No, no, absolutely not. So, so yeah, there's I that was one that I added last night, and then I, you know, died a little bit inside when I had to remove that from this version of my list. So I'm
Yeah, I
glad that
hated
you
cutting it from
included
the soundtrack one hurt, but I was like, oh, it came out before. No.
it. Mhm.
So I was glad
See,
to be able to include it here.
and the beauty of all of that is there's let's see, one, two, three, four from soundtracks that made my list. And I was like, well, you're going on the cover list, and that's
Hmm.
fine. So, yeah,
I have at least that many too now that I'm looking.
yeah, so, so, so cool. All right.
All right, give me your first
So,
three.
so my first one. Oh, hold on. Okay. So, my first one, I love Boys to Men. Love Boys to Men. And when some people are like, the greatest boy band ever is NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and all you millennials out there and Gen Zers who are like One Direction or the BTS or whatever.
Yeah, they're
Um,
all letters. I don't
I
even
I
know
d-
their names
I
anymore.
don't even know anymore. And here I am swooping in and be like, you know, Boys to Men, don't forget about them
Oh my
because
gosh.
they
There
were
was
great.
nothing bigger. Like they were just like and they transcended everyone's like of a certain genre. Like I
Mhm.
don't know anyone that doesn't like Boys to Men.
So
Like,
in that vein, they did an entire album of love songs, which to me I was like, oh, that's perfect.
perfect for
Um,
them.
so the one that I ended up picking was their a cappella rendition because they can do a cappella versions
Mhm.
of lots of songs, but their version of Time After Time
Mhm.
is fantastic. And I I agonized because I originally had, they did a version of Amaze, they did a version of Iris, they did like a really soulful version of Open Arms, which I really
Oh,
like as
that's got to
well.
be amazing.
But their entire album of this is filled with like all these solid hits, and they've done they've done a lot of covers because like again, just in the 90s, it was something that you just threw a cover on there for your album. So I would encourage anyone check that out because as a love song dork like me, but more importantly as a Boys to Men fan, uh, there's a lot to love on that album.
For sure.
My next one. So I wouldn't consider myself a huge Rolling Stones fan. Like I like them plenty, but there's certain songs out there that I really like. Like I love, Can't Always Get What You Want. But one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs is Wild Horses. And but the first time that I actually heard Wild Horses was
Mhm.
watching the movie Fear when Mark Wahlberg is,
Yeah,
doing stuff with Reese Witherspoon
there's
on a
things at a carnival going
fucking
on.
roller coaster.
Yes.
As a younger kid in the 90s watching that, I was like, I don't understand what's going on. But one thing that I did understand was I really liked the song that was playing during that. So there's a version of Wild Horses played by the Sundays. Like it's
Mm,
super slow. It's it's like this story is ridiculous because I am just picturing just like watch like hearing this song
Mhm,
during that part in Fear, but this song, it's like I think it had a little time on the radio as well because
mhm.
it's just one of those songs that instantly recognizable as, this is clearly a cover because Wild Horses is one of Rolling Stone's best songs.
Oh,
But
yeah.
this version of it I really like, and it's much slower. Like Wild Horses in general is
Which is
is a
funny to
slow
say that
song.
about a slow song, and they slowed it down even more, but it still feels right.
Mhm.
Their version of it still sounds good, and you're not just like, why would they cover a Rolling Stones song? They still did something great with it. Now
Mhm.
I'm with you on that because, yeah, you can't not think about that scene. If you've seen the movie,
Yeah,
you can't not think about that when you hear the song.
right, right. But yeah, like I can't deny that I love the song. I
Mhm.
love this version of it.
No, that's a good
Uh,
pick for sure.
So my final one for this first set. So this goes in the you don't really understand the lyrics until you slow it down and be like, oh, there's actually a lot here. So I love the song Hey Ya so much. I love it. But I loved it because it's got a good beat. The music video is awesome, all of that stuff. I didn't really listen to the lyrics or anything like that until there was a guy named Obadiah Parker who did a acoustic version of it. And then once you actually listen to the lyrics, be like, man, Outcast knows their shit, man.
Yeah.
So I love this version of it. Is it ever going to be better than the original? Absolutely not. And nor are we legislating that when it comes to these songs. But this was the first of many acoustic versions that I heard of this song that, you actually listen to the lyrics that what they're trying to say with that. It's like, oh, I get it now. I do.
Mhm,
And it makes you like one of the things that I love about this cover, it made me appreciate the original so much more.
mhm.
So yeah.
That is what's really cool about some of these covers is sometimes just slowing it down or singing it in a different way, you actually do get more out of the song because you realize it wasn't just like a pop hit or it wasn't just, all flash and drums, there's actually substance to the song when you're listening to it. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the cool part about hearing it in a different way is it makes you listen to the lyrics more a lot of the time to make because I think subconsciously your brain is like, hey, wait, is this the same song? And your brain's like trying to translate like what's going on. You're like, oh yeah, that is. Like I already know these lyrics. And
Yeah.
it's pretty cool when that happens.
All right. Give me your next three.
All right. So my next one is from 2001, Alien Ant Farm covering Smooth Criminal.
That was a
Loved when
hot
this came out. I know not ever like
loves.
I people either love or hate this, and I know it's because it's Michael Jackson. Like a lot of people have strong feelings about covering such great iconic songs. But I think part of it is the music video. You can tell how much they truly love his music because there's so many hints and nods to all the different MJ stuff in that video. And I think it's a really fun interpretation of that time. Like it's very 2000s,
It's
but
very
like it's
2000s.
so
Absolutely.
2000s, just everything about it. But I really like it's fun, it's more upbeat. It's not as like I'm not saying that Smooth Criminal sounded like dark, but like this one's more but I mean it is, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of dark, but I like the poppier like interpretation on this one. And like I said, the music video is just so much fun. Like I
Mhm.
love that he's wearing the sparkly glove and the kid moonwalking and the sidewalk lighting up. Like everything about it just like felt very of the time, but still very much like paying homage to the original. And I think that's cool.
I I love this version of this song. And, it just fits in very nicely with, like you said, it's very of the time, which, that alternative pop punky sound of the early 2000s. This was on, like, I remember when this song came out that everybody loved it. Like, I loved it unabashedly as well. This also showed up in American Pie 2.
Mhm.
Just, again, a very of the time soundtrack.
It's been in a lot of shows too. Like if you actually go online and see it, like it pops up all over like Netflix stuff and things like that. Like you hear it in a lot of places even still, just because it is a very like if you are trying to show something was in the 2000s, like this is a great way to
This
do
is a
that.
great way to do that. Good
Because you
call.
can't hear this and not think like, okay, early aughts, like. But my next one is completely different. Got a Hawaiian man in his 30s covering a song sung by a 16-year-old girl from Minnesota. So if you've never heard of Big Israel Kamakawiwa Ole, he's awesome. He was great. He formed a lot of groups in Hawaii in the 70s, 80s, 90s doing ukulele music and like a lot of traditional songs. And he did a cover of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And a lot of people probably didn't hear it until a couple years after his death when they re-released it. But it was the end song on 51st Dates, which horrible movie with in theme, but great song to end
Mhm.
that with. It's gorgeous. Like I remember, that's how I found the song. I literally remember the end of that movie. Credits come on and this song's going. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Like I have to know who this is, and staying to make sure I watch the credits to see who did it and finding, is and he's just got such beautiful covers and beautiful original songs. They've got a kind of a tribute video that they did after his death that shows his funeral and everything to this song. So
Oh,
it's
that's
really gorgeous. And he's got the voice of an angel and just can really play the hell out of that ukulele.
so this is on my list as well. It's further down on the list. I have the version that's Over the Rainbow. What a wonderful one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like either version is great. The first time I heard this was at the end of the movie Finding Forrester. And I
Yep.
was like, oh, I like this. It makes no sense for this movie, but I still really I love it.
It's gorgeous. It's
It's
so
such
gorgeous.
a smooth version of the song. And yeah, that ukulele definitely just
He makes it
underrated.
sing. Like he just makes
Underrated.
it sing.
It's yeah. So yeah, that is further down on my list. I'm so glad that you picked it as well. So yeah, good call out with
Yeah.
that one. You be your last one from this set.
So we're heading from Hawaii over to Sweden because you know what else comes from Sweden besides meatballs and flat pack furniture?
ABBA?
Julia Westland.
Oh, okay.
She is a Scandinavian songstress that I just love. She does a cappella versions of everything. So she has two different like lines of albums that she's done. One's called a cappella and she literally calls them a cappella 2. Like they're just named that. And then she has albums called covers, covers 1, covers 2, covers 3.
Mhm.
I found her during lockdown on YouTube because her videos are freaking amazing. Like she sings all the parts, but when she does a video for it, she sings all the part like different outfit, and there'll
Ooh.
be like Brady Bunch style, like 12 of her
Oh, nice.
singing with herself. And it's so amazing. I wanted to do one of the ones where she actually has her partner in on it with her because he does like he'll be doing two or three different parts too, like tapping the mic like for a thump or being like
Oh,
just
the
like
the
it's
symbol, yeah.
yeah, he'll do stuff like that. And like I said, there'll be up to I think 16 of her in one of them. And she's harmonizing with herself and she's just got a beautiful voice. But I picked her cover of Elastic Heart. I think
Ooh.
is probably my favorite. Like it was between that and Tove Lo Habits because those are my two favorites from her. But she does all kinds of like she does like I Can't Help Falling in Love and Stand by Me and all kinds of beautiful songs like that. But she does newer stuff too, with more of a slower a cappella sound to it. And she's got a beautiful voice and I love what she does with the arrangements. I think is really cool because she's definitely got her own style and she's just got a like her voice is different without being too crazy different. Like
Mhm.
I know when it's her singing, but it's not because it's like, oh, she's got a screechy sound or oh, she's got that like she's just got a gorgeous voice and you can still kind of hear enough of her accent through it to like kind of feel where she's from, but not that she, you know what I mean? Because sometimes when people sing, you don't hear their accent, and you
No.
still get a little bit of it with her, which I think is cool because it makes the song her own.
Yep. No, I
But
I'm
like I said, she's got albums and albums full of covers, and they're all great. But I would definitely say Elastic Heart's my favorite.
nice. This is what I'll have to check this out because it sounds familiar. Like because this does sound like something that we also discovered during lockdown for COVID when you didn't have a lot to do. You had to like stick around
Mm.
inside, and then that was pretty much it. So,
Right. It was something cool that I'd turn on her playlist and there'd be, 50 songs of her doing different a cappella songs, and I knew it was safe to watch with the kids and they
mhm,
enjoyed it. And they
mhm,
enjoyed the production value of having all the different her pop up, like, because sometimes she's wearing similar outfits that are different, like all white dresses or something, but other times she's wearing just completely different clothing. Like there's one, like this one, she's got like a Cookie Monster shirt on in one, but she's got like, a gorgeous dress on in another, and just like, a long sleeve shirt. Like it's just funny to see all of the different, like, and it's crazy to me to think of how much it takes to edit that together is just crazy when you think about it. Because
mhm.
even in the videos, you can see her looking, like you can tell she's looking to make sure, she's listening and looking to get everything lined up. But it's just so cool to know that it's the same person doing all the parts is really cool.
Yeah. All right. My next three, I've got. I really like the song "Have a Little Faith in Me." It's a really great song. I didn't I didn't dive down the rabbit hole of like who's the first person that actually originally came up with this song because I because I feel like every time I've heard this song, it's a cover of something, and this song made the rounds in the 90s in particular with a couple of different movies, which this is another one that I got from a movie. But I have the one by John Hyatt, which is featured in the movie Benny and June, which I
Oh.
unabashedly love
Mm.
the movie Benny and June. Is it a little problematic today? Yeah, just a little bit. Like a lot of movies from the 90s are just a little bit
A
problematic.
little bit, yeah.
But I really like the piano intro for this and just powerhouse vocal with this very gritty version. So like Jewel does a version during like in the same era of Have a Little Faith in Me from the Phenomenon soundtrack. And
That's a movie I never thought I'd hear about again.
yeah, that's fair. Because I just recently brought this up because I included the song "Change the World" by Eric Clapton on another playlist, and the person I was recording with was like, "What movie is this again?" I'm like,
Travolta holding his temples for an hour and a half.
"Yeah, that's really about it." So all of this to say, I love the movie Benny and June, and I love this version of "Have a Little Faith in Me." My next one, the aforementioned 5 minute time killing version of Killing Me Softly by the Fugees,
It's
or
so
as
great though.
or as one of my friends' dads calls them, the Fudgies. Like, dude,
Wouldn't have been
like
the only one when they came out though, really, to have said that, because I can remember hearing their name just being butchered on the radio.
so this is also not my first introduction to Lauryn Hill because I was one of those people who watched Sister Act 2 and
Mhm.
was like, who's
Who is
this
this girl?
person?
Yeah.
And why isn't she singing?
Yep.
Like, so she ended up in the Fugees, and we're all better for it because
Oh my gosh, yeah.
so this version, though, just I love this because the original version is great. It's like a, R&B, just straight through and through and everything like that. But the hip hop and the reggae influences that they have in this version is really good. I love the the those three, Praz and Wyclef Jean as well. They made just a lot of great music, and it was inevitable at some point that they were going to break up and they all do their individual things. Praz didn't do much. Like I love the song Ghetto Superstar. so much from the Bulworth soundtrack. That
Yes.
was a hard cut
I
from our
had that on my
soundtracks.
initial list for soundtracks too.
And then Wyclef Jean does a version of Staying Alive that also almost made this playlist, but it was another hard cut as well. So the Fugees were great in the 90s. And it's too bad what happened to them. They had that one album that just soared
Mm,
for large part of the 90s, and then they just never really recaptured that, and then they
mm.
then they went their separate ways. Lauryn Hill's The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is still one of the great albums of the 90s, if early 2000s, if ever, because it's a
Yeah.
really
No, it
great
was a great solo
sound.
album to have after that. So it's great that she did get an album right after that that did get the popularity it deserved because she's got so much soul and feeling in her songs. Like I just you can I don't know. There's something about like the amount of feeling you get listening to her when she's
Mhm.
singing, especially in this cover. I mean, it's got a lot of emotion and feel to it, and I think it's because of what they did with their version, like making it different enough and being able to translate, into just being a more emotional version of it.
My final song is a Tenacious D cover because I love me some Tenacious D. It is still to this day one of the most fun I've ever had at a concert. Because through and through, Jack Black is the one of the perfect frontmen for a band out there. He knows how to put on a show. And you wouldn't think that someone like him, his voice just like transcends. Oh, okay, transcends is a strong word because it's Jack Black.
I think it's more that it's unexpected because it's
Yeah.
Jack Black.
So there's a lot I could have picked for this, but I ended up picking the version from Kung Fu Panda 4, which I hated that movie, but their version of Baby One More Time is is great. I love it. It's you know like could I have picked Jack Black's version, or no, it was CeeLo Green and Jack Black's version of Kung Fu Fighting, which I liked from the first soundtrack. I bought it on iTunes like an idiot because I look back at some of the songs that I like actually bought on iTunes when
Mm.
I was younger and be like, what is the matter with me? Like, what am I doing? But this version of Baby One More Time, between this and his and Peaches, you know, Jack Black is really making a name for himself as
Mhm.
somebody who's just making songs for kids movies, which feels very much in his niche. I could see him like being a Johnny Karate-esque character from Parks and Rec. Yeah,
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
I like this version of Baby One More Time a lot. So,
No, I really kind of hope it, like you said, I hope he keeps doing stuff like that for kids movies because it just feels so right with him. Like he's a fun he seems like a fun guy. He
mhm.
sounds fun. Like I think that the versions of the covers he's done for these movies just are in line with, what you need in a cover when you're adding it to a movie.
Yeah.
They're fun and they're fresh and they're still very him.
Yeah. All right. Give me your next three.
All right, so my next one, it was hard not to choose them covering Tears for Fears, but I went with Disturbed doing their 2015 cover of Simon and Garfunkel's Sound of Silence.
That
It's
was a hard
actually
cut
been
for
the
me.
first song on my like, when I go for my bike rides, it's my warm-up song, like, when
Mm,
I'm getting ready to leave, like, because it kinda winds you into it. So, it's been the first song on my workout mix for years.
mhm.
But I love David Draymond's voice because you can just hear emotion in it. It's not all just, like, kinda screeching like, shout, you get all the shouting, but, like, in this one, you really get to hear that he does have, like, the skills. And I love Disturbed anyway, but I love that they've done, like, all these covers. But Sound of
Mhm.
Silence has a lot of good covers of it because there's a
Yes, it
Pentatonics
does.
version that I almost went with, but I was trying not to make, like, a whole list of acapella covers.
Hmm.
But, yeah, I really like that, and it's so, like, unexpected. I mean, like, Sound of Silence is from the 60s. It's Simon and Garfunkel. You would not expect, this like a hard rock band to do such a beautiful version of it, but still be so much their own.
That's a good call out. This version of The Sound of Silence was a hard cut for me. Yeah, just well, and also so was the version by Anna Kendrick in
Hmm.
Trolls as well. I had both versions on this, and then the Anna Kendrick version got cut first because it was like I can't just have these be, all kids versions of
Right?
stuff from a
Even
soundtrack.
though they're great.
They're great, but this one was among one of the last ones to go, and it bummed me out a lot, but it is what it is.
So my next one is also a cover of a song from the 60s. It's a Gloria Jones song from 1964. You may have heard of it, Tainted Love. Did it in the 80s.
Mhm.
And it kind of started the whole synth electronica sound that would really define like new wave kind of music. So it really is a cool song to, first off, that it's a cover, but that it started kind of defining that genre.
Mhm.
But I still just remember the first time I clearly remember hearing the song was actually on the Coneheads, the movie. They're in this car in that convertible driving down the street and they're singing it and like throwing their hands up. Like it's just
Like,
a fun song, and a lot of other people have covered it. I mean, the Marilyn Manson version is awesome too. And what's
mhm,
even crazier is that was also from Not Another Teen Movie. Like, what an insane soundtrack that movie had, because it also had a
mhm.
cover of Mandy that I almost put on here
Oh,
that was really
nice.
good. But yeah, I mean, Chris Evans is in the music video for the Marilyn Manson Tainted Love. Like, how crazy is that to think about? Like, wrap your head around that one for a minute.
What
And it's not
what
just
a
clips from the movie, they actually acted parts for just the video.
what a world we live in, right?
Right? Like he was reprising his role as Jake Weiler.
Who would have thought that that would have been his first thing that he got to reprise a role
I
for?
know, right? Like
And
not Captain America. No, he was Jake Weiler twice,
yeah,
which is just nuts.
nice. Okay.
So then my last one in this three is a 2006 cover by, let me describe this band to you the way they are described on Wikipedia. A goth metal band from Milan, India. Italy. Ugh. A goth metal band from Milan, Italy. They're called Lacuna Coil, and they
Oh,
do a cover of Depeche Mode's "Enjoy the Silence." But they also did a lot of covers for Guitar Hero. So
yes, they did.
probably heard them. I'm trying to think specifically which one they did, but I know they've got a couple. Like Closer, I think they did for Guitar Hero. I feel like there were more, but I'm almost positive they did Closer.
Yeah, yeah, that one's in Guitar Hero 3. And
Their lead singer, Christina Scabia, has such a cool voice, and like some of the vocals, like she's backing herself up, on the album versions. There's also some male backup vocals. So they just have a really cool sound. So it's a cool cover. They do other covers too on the one album. They've got, I think, three or four covers, but this one's by far my favorite. But it's just such a
yeah,
weird, cool band to show up on like Guitar Hero and stuff. And
I mean,
I
I'm
just
not
like the
gonna lie.
idea of goth metal band from Italy.
I'm not gonna lie, I could probably do an entire cover of or an entire playlist of songs like these are the songs I discovered on Guitar Hero, and I
Mhm.
am a rock band for all those people or the select few
Right,
people
yes.
out there who play DJ Hero or
Yeah.
Piano
Well, even
Warrior,
the
whatever
Just
it's called.
Dance had a bunch of covers too, because they didn't use the like licensed versions of the songs. But there's
Right.
a lot of cool covers on that too.
Yeah. So that's because as soon as you said the band, I was like, I've heard of them. And then I haven't heard the version of the song that the Enjoy the Silence version. So I'll have to check that one out.
Oh, it's definitely worth it. So go ahead and give me
Um,
your next three.
so I'm doing some slight reswizzling to the only thing that I'm doing is just I am moving up my the version of Over the Rainbow, What a Wonderful World, since you already mentioned it
Mm.
and it's on your list as well. So I'm just moving that up just to be like, I acknowledge it, it's on my list as well. So hooray! We have
Yay!
commonality. This next one, okay, okay. Like many people, I doom scroll on TikTok because we all do it. Like if you don't, like, hey, it's just like this recent voting campaign that says like, hey, they're not gonna know who you voted for. It's the same thing, like nobody's gonna know what you're doom scrolling on TikTok, or whatever, unless like you follow a bunch of people that like you end up like doom scrolling on. But one thing that just randomly came up one day is this guy who does Viking versions of certain
Dude,
songs.
I think you're about to take one of mine.
Well, we'll see, but it's a guy named Peyton Parrish,
Yes.
and he's got a lot of really great versions of songs.
Everything.
Um,
Yeah.
it's his voice.
Mhm.
He's got like a strong, gritty voice, and so he does a lot of like Disney versions of
Dude, if
songs.
you picked the same exact cover, I'm gonna lose it.
I don't
Did you
think I
pick a
did.
Disney song?
I did pick a Disney song.
I did too. Did you pick a
Um,
Donny Osmond song?
I did not pick the Donny
Whew.
Osmond song, even though so but quick call out or quick shout out. I loved his version of because I won't talk specifically about the one is
I don't know.
obviously
We
on
can
your
talk
list.
about it now.
I I love the version that he does of Go the Distance. I
Hmm.
thought like it's really good. But the version I picked his version of How Far I'll Go from
Hmm.
Moana, which is fantastic. It's really good. And the only thing that like kind of takes me out of it is when he's like singing the first part. It's like, I wish I could be the perfect daughter. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
like you don't have to we don't have to go verbatim on this. Like
But
Boyce
he
Avenue,
always does, which is
yeah,
what's kind of funny because he's sing like the other songs from Mulan too. Like he does a couple of them, not just "I'll Make a Man Out of You." So
yeah,
it is kind of funny when he's singing about, like just the content of some of them is
yeah.
funny coming from him because you've
So
got just this grungy punk cover of this guy that just like I love that they describe him too as like Viking grunge
Viking
because he
grunge, yeah.
because he did the first thing I guess he was got noticed doing was the Assassin's Creed Valhalla. He did a song from that, which became like the theme song or something for the show Vikings.
Oh,
Like that's what I went down quite a rabbit hole.
very nice.
So yeah, he's got albums of Disney covers though that are just so cool. I like when he does the one from Lion King, Be Prepared is awesome. Yeah, he's got such a cool voice. It's
Hmm.
different. It's very distinctly him. And like I said, like the style, just like just describing his style as Viking grunge punk is
Yeah.
crazy.
I'm very glad that we have somebody like Peyton Parrish to be a champion for Viking grunge music.
Punk.
So because he doesn't just do Disney songs. He also does a
Mhm,
version of This Is Me from The Greatest Showman that I really
mhm.
enjoy as well. But this one, my daughter and I first listened to this and she was like, wait, is this from Moana? And I was like, yes. And she was like, turn it off. No. I was like, okay, I get that. But I listened to it. I played it at trivia one day and people were like, is this from?
Right?
Yeah. So shout out to Peyton Parrish.
For
Not gonna
sure.
lie, I have a lot of ones that I really enjoy. Peyton Parrish was not the artist that I thought we were gonna overlap on.
That's
So
so crazy. I know,
like,
right? I thought for sure you'd be like, who's this guy?
nope,
That's
nope.
so out of everyone that would be the overlap.
So, and then my final one, I love pentatonics. I do.
Mm.
I'm one of those people who loved pentatonics from their sing-off days when which to me, the Sing Off will go down in history as one of my favorite all-time reality TV shows because the judging on it was great. Not so much Nicole Scherzinger, but like Ben Folds, Sean Stockman, Stockton. I don't know. I'll edit that out. But and Sarah Bareilles, when all three of them were together, they were great. And that was the season where Pentatonics was on it, and they like if they wouldn't have won that season, it would have been a travesty. And if you think about it, I would argue that the Sing Off has produced more hit bands or singers than The Voice has, because
Now,
I don't know a single person who has been as successful as Pentatonics has been from The Voice. Like you can't argue with the results from American Idol with like Kelly Clarkson
Oh yeah.
and well, Kelly Clarkson,
Kelly
but
Clarkson, yeah. Hey, Clay Aiken had a year. He's got
Clay
a great
Clay Aiken
he's got a great
had
Christmas album.
he also ran for Congress or
Right.
ran for like and
But
like and for all those people who are like, well, what about Carrie Underwood? It's like, yeah, okay,
okay.
that's fine. But it was hard to narrow down a pentatonic song because I could we could make a whole playlist
I
of
could
pentatonics
definitely have 80 minutes of them.
of covers because they pump out music like it's their job. You could do a specific version of Pentatonic's Christmas
Yeah,
songs
I was about to
that
say their Christmas album is just so great. That's actually the first time I'd ever heard them. Was they? I guess it must have been because they won or whatever. Because I don't watch any of the shows, but like
well, because
I
they're
always watch
garbage.
the
That's why.
yeah, but I always watch like the Disney like Christmas special, like where they do around all the parks and stuff. And typically they tend to have winners from shows like that that they're kind of pumping after a win. And Pentatonics was one of them when they were opening Galactic Star Cruiser and all that down here.
Mm,
The when all the what's it called? The Star Wars whatever's Edge down here when it opened, they were one of the acts that opened it on the like it was crazy because I'm like, who are these guys? And then I started looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're amazing.
mm,
Like, they sound so cool.
yeah.
So that's the first time I was ever exposed to them was like on a Disney special.
So the what I ended up picking for them because I could have easily picked some of their versions from the sing off that they did, but I didn't want to do that because that was one of my rules at the end of the day was I'm not picking any versions from reality competition
Yep,
shows. Like I just again, that could be another playlist on its own,
for
but
sure.
I didn't do that. So I ended up picking one of their mashups, their version of New Rules and Are You That Somebody, which
Nice.
is great. First of all, I love the song Are You That Somebody? Does it make sense to have that song in the Dr. Dolittle soundtrack, the Eddie Murphy version? No, absolutely not. Did I love that music video when it came out? Yes, because that was huge. That was
Hmm.
another TRL song. So, but I recognized the beat immediately when this song came up on my YouTube feed. And I was like, oh, what is this? I know this. And I go and listen and it was like, oh, oh, okay. And Pentatonics has always been really great about layering songs together, unexpected mashups, and
Hmm.
just making it work. Yes, this also kind of did bum me out a little bit because this was the first time that their original bass player wasn't on, or the bass singer wasn't actually on this song. But it was like, oh, this bass singer is fantastic as well. He's really great. So so yes, New Rules and Are You That Somebody? Love this version. Love Pentatonics. Go listen to their stuff.
Yeah, for sure. They're great.
All right. What is your next three?
So my next one is from 2003, no doubt, covering the 1984 Talk Talk song "It's My Life." I actually really like the original. Like, I don't know if it's actually supposed to be the sound of birds like cawing in it, or if it's some kind of instrument, because I am not musically smart at all. But to
Mhm.
me, it sounds like birds. And there's a bird on the cover of the album. So, like, I feel like it could actually be birds, but I like the No Doubt version. I love the video for this one with her going to court and be like, in the jumpsuit and jumping across out of the box in court and stuff. Like, I like No Doubt. Like I've liked them from the beginning. I was totally bummed when they got bumped off as the opening act when I saw Bush back in the mid 90s. That was a
No.
real like I was so disappointed because it wasn't something we knew ahead of time. And they'd been touring like all summer together. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to see No Doubt and Bush. This is so great
Mhm.
because it's when her and Gavin were still married. And then all of a sudden they switched it to be Veruca Salt, which was still fun, but not No Doubt.
It's
So
not, no
never,
doubt.
never got to see them live, which was a little disappointing. But yeah, I love this cover. I mean, they've done a couple other ones. Like they were on the Zoolander soundtrack doing Donna Summer. Like they've done a lot of fun, like quirky little covers, but I like this one being part of like a proper album for them. And it feels like a choice the right choice for them, like doing an 80s song Like it's just their it feels like it's on point for them, especially at that time in their career. So it's a fun one and I like it. But my next one is kind of okay. So Weezer's done a lot of covers, right? Like
Yes, they have.
Rivers can sing anything, but they've got this cover that they did with Haley Williams from Paramore singing a song from a 1979 movie that was sung by a frog, Rainbow Connection.
That's great
It's
pick. This is a
it's
great pick.
such a cool version. I like that. I think you kind of had to do it as a duet for it to be different enough to be worth covering.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I've heard a lot of versions of it. Honestly, No Doubt has a version of it that Gwen Stefani did. So,
Mhm.
but about 10 years before this one came out. But there's actually a whole album called Muppets: the Green Album, because if you actually look at the Green Album, you're going to get a Weezer album, which does not include this song. But Muppets: the Green Album is like Foo Fighters, My Morning Jacket, Amy Lee from Evanescence, the lead singer from Atreyu, Brandon Soller, all of them doing covers of different Muppet songs and a couple of Sesame Street characters too. It's really
Mhm.
fun to hear all the different, like just the Foo Fighters one is amazing. Like, but I really just this one's my favorite. It's the first album, like the first track on the album, and just like I said, Rivers and Haley singing together sound like they're so great together. I wish they would do more things together because they their voices mesh so well. But it's a fun cover of a song that you wouldn't realize how many covers of it there are. It's crazy how many people want to sing Rainbow Connection, but it's an amazing song. I mean, like Paul Williams knew what he was doing. When
Yes, very much so.
like just so talented.
Mhm.
And like I love the Muppets, so like this is probably going to be in my top of the year on Spotify. I feel like I've listened to it so much. Like I have no doubt when I get my year-end recap this is going to be near the top for sure.
Nice.
So then my last one of this three, totally different sound, totally different feeling. It's a cover of Nine Inch Nails' Hurt by Johnny Cash from
This was a
2003.
this was a hard cut. Very like very
Dude was
hard cut.
71 when he covered this, and you can hear the frailty in his voice, but, he's still just, like you can hear the pain, you can hear the, like, just it's I love it. It's got such a great sound to it when he did it, like, I don't know. Like, I for some reason, when I was looking into it, a lot of people didn't like that he covered it, which I thought was kind of a weird I don't know.
Wait.
Like, there was, like, literally the first 3 articles that came up were, like, controversy over I'm like, "What
Oh,
the" like, it was literally the last thing the dude recorded. It
I
was
like I did hear that it was controversial, but also but it felt like spot on.
right.
If there was anybody with like a gritty enough voice that could match something
Mhm.
like this and kind of put his own spin on it, Johnny Cash was like a perfect person
Right.
to do this. Like to me also, like this will all that song will always remind me of the first trailer for the movie Logan as well, when it's like, oh, this fits
Which is
perfectly.
perfect. Like, seriously, could not be a more perfect mesh of artist and song for a movie. Like, that is, like, spot on, like, a great addition to that soundtrack.
Yeah. So that's the great pick. I love that song. I love that version of that song. And all those people who thought that it was controversial for like bad reasons, get
Yeah,
over yourself. Honestly,
exactly.
Like artists, let artists art, you know?
Mhm. And it was his last song, like, let's just let him rest in peace,
Yeah.
and, like, I'm glad that that was his like, honestly, like, if you're gonna have a last song, I'm glad that it was one that turned out so well. Like,
Mhm.
that the rendition was good. Because if it would've been so sad if, like, the last thing that was released, like, posthumously for him was, like, a bad cover of a song.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. My next three, and this is where I finally did do a little bit of rearranging because these all are country versions
Oh,
of
wow.
songs. I didn't realize that I had three, but I do. So here we go. The first one is the most generic of the ones. It is the version of Walking in Memphis by Lone Star, which
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't really sound different or anything like that. It just sounds twangy. That's it. But I've seen Lone Star twice in concert, and one time they that or the one time that they do play this, they hoisted the piano up, and I was
Oh,
like,
cool.
that's really cool. So I love Lone Star. It's no secret, but this version, it's the pretty generic version. Like when we talk about covers, this is probably as generic as I get when it comes to just a cover version of a song. Uh, still enjoy the original, but I do like this one as well. Um,
Everyone did though because it was on every radio station, not just country ones. I
yeah.
mean, I don't listen to country stations, but I don't hate country music, but it was on all the stuff I was listening to too when it came
Mm,
out, and it seemed like it was on for a while too. It wasn't just like a 1 month it's on all the time and then it went away. I mean, it had some legs to it.
right. My next one is from the Chicks who did Landslide. And I feel like if we're doing a covers playlist that like Landslide, there's so many different versions
Mhm.
of this song. And it's just about just picking which flavor is right for you. And for me, this version, I love this version with the guitar and just the three-part harmony as well. So, yeah, the
No, that's a great pick. I honestly was on my initial like huge list. Like I had put it on there, but I'm like, obviously I'm not going to choose landslide. So it
mhm,
was one of my first cuts just because I was like, well, I'm definitely keeping Smashing Pumpkins. And then it's funny that I ended up cutting their version too.
mhm,
But yeah, I'm like I said, not totally in the country, but I've always enjoyed this version. They performed it on something I couldn't tell you what, but that's the first time I heard it, and I didn't realize it was actually, like, on one of their albums at the time,
mhm.
but I do remember actually burning it onto a CD at one point. It was on one of the many verbatims piled up by my desk.
Oh man, verbatim. Huh. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
That's a good pull.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
So my last one, this is the version of a song that is like drastically different from the original because I don't I don't take Michael Jackson covers lightly when it comes to music. And we talked about the Alien Ant Farm version. I don't know your feelings about the Fallout version or Fallout Boy version of Beat It, but it's
It's it's not bad. Like, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I did kind of enjoy the cover that they did of that. I It might be one of the only ones I of their songs that I've actually listened to more than once, quite honestly.
Yeah. So you don't get a lot of country versions, or in this case, it's technically bluegrass versions of Michael Jackson songs. So I have the Civil Wars version of Billie Jean
Okay, I
on
have
here.
Billie Jean on my list too. I was about to say, I guarantee you're about to say Billie Jean.
So
So we'll get to my Billie Jean later, but now I'm anxious to hear, like, I actually I've never heard that version, so I'm anxious
it's
to listen to that when we're done.
it's very it's slow. It's and like for a pop song like this to like slow it down. And this is another one where it's like it's very lyric driven. And
Mhm.
it's like, oh, okay. Does this song make me appreciate the original version more? No, because I love the original version.
Right.
But I appreciate I appreciate the swing. And this is something that I say in my movie and TV show reviews on Sif Pop. So is that I will give somebody more points and more leash if they swing for the fences. And if
Mhm.
they come up short, I will give them credit for that as opposed to doing a straight remake of something kind of like what Walking in Memphis is, unfortunately. But this
No,
version
I'm
of
with
Billie
you. I
Jean
like
is
when
cool.
people try something different, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we get amazing results, and
Mhm,
we'd never know if like artists didn't, have the guts to try because it's so easy now to think like it's got to be so hard to be an artist now, right? With social media and everything because if you try something and it sucks, like everyone's going to tell you you suck. And
mhm,
it's like, look, I tried, I have talent, it didn't work out. So I really do appreciate when they try something like vastly different from either their comfort zone or try to make something that's just so different from their usual and make it their own. So that's a pretty awesome pick. I like it.
All right, give me your next three.
So my next one, I don't feel like everyone knows it's a cover, even though, and I know part of that's probably just from the time I was born. I heard the original first,
Mhm.
but we've got Tears for Fears 1982 song Mad World being covered by Gary Jules in 2001. And I think that he did an amazing rendition with Michael Andrews. And it's probably the most notable cover on this list in general. Like, honestly, I don't think there's another one on my list anyway, with maybe one exception that more people have heard because
Mhm.
it's been on everything. Like, I actually, besides the Donnie Darko soundtrack, which is what it's from initially, which is not where I heard it first, but I watched CSI when it first started, like the
Oh,
CSI Vegas, like when it was just CSI,
when it was
crime scene
good.
investigation, when it was good. And oh, I was like a every Thursday night girl watching that. And I remember hearing this on there. But at the time, it wasn't like this is still, like I said, 2001. You're not going on Google and finding out what a song is. Like, you'd be like, oh, that's a cool version that they put on here. And unless you bought the DVDs when they came out later, you're not hearing it again and you don't know who it was. So they actually brought that song, that cover back in season 6 and used it 3 more times, which is
Mm,
when at that point technology availability found out who it was and was like, "Oh, cool. I love this song," and was able to actually get a single of it because I didn't want to buy the entire Donnie Darko soundtrack for one song.
that's fair. That's fair.
But
So
what like
the
go
the
ahead.
first the first time that I heard this version was in Donnie Darko, like you said, but the one time that I did hear this that I was like, this is actually a pretty great use of this song was for a trailer for the game Gears of War.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, like this feels right to do
Yeah.
this.
It's a great song and it's been used for a lot of things, and it's another one where there's a lot of covers. Like, I think it seems so crazy, but there's actually a Taco Bell commercial that uses it with the I'm not kidding, like a Bacon Club Chalupa came out and a Halsey version of this real slow, people walking slowly through a mall, like for a bacon chalupa. And it's just like, why is this stupid commercial using such a beautiful song? But like, I remember it 10 years later. Like, how ridiculous is that? But
Uh,
Postmodern
well,
Jukebox has a really great version with Haley Reinhart and Puddles Pity Party doing it, which is really good too. Like, he's the 7-foot clown that dresses in black and white, like the full vaudeville like style, and the song is a very vaudevillian style. But I love the Gary Jules version. It's so pretty, and I think it's cool that it's been used in so many things. I mean, it's been on Smallville, Without a Trace, Scrubs, Alias, Grey's Anatomy. Like, seriously, the list is ridiculous of how many times this song has been used.
yeah,
Then what do I got? One more in this, or that was the first one in this
I
one,
thought that
right?
was the
Okay.
first one.
Yep. So my next one is, like I said, probably the only other like really noticeable, like notable cover. And I'm not saying it's like amazing, but I like the original group that did it, and it's from Shrek soundtrack, Smash Mouth doing "I'm a Believer." I actually really love the Monkees. Like
Yeah.
like I watched their show all the time when I was a kid because believe it or not, folks, MTV used to show music related shows too. And
What?
The
No.
Monkees show was actually one of the initial things that was on back when they didn't have a crap ton of content. So, like, you would be able to watch the Monkees every day at like 4 o'clock or something. So it was literally like watch Scooby Doo and then flip to MTV and watch the Monkees for an hour.
Hmm.
So I've always been a fan of their music. So when I heard I'm a Believer when Shrek came out, I'm like, oh, this is so crazy. Like, it was so unexpected. Like, it's one of those like covers that was just such a pleasant surprise to see a song from an artist that I already loved being done by another artist that I liked and having it be a fun and so different version. Like, it's still upbeat and happy, but it's like definitely so different.
That's another one. It's of the time, because
Yeah, very much
it's,
so
you know, and I feel bad because I feel like Smash Mouth got reduced a little bit
because of
from
doing all the
like,
soundtrack songs.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is too bad because like still appreciate what Smash Mouth brought to the table when it came to music. And there's a lot of songs from the Shrek soundtrack or soundtracks
Yeah.
that could have been included on this because like
Oh, for
I
sure.
alluded to last week or
Mhm.
not last week during our music one that the version of Rufus Wainwright's Hallelujah is on
Yep.
on my
Mhm.
list from the
Oh,
Shrek soundtrack, but I did want to shout out there's a version of You Belong to Me by Jason Wade of Lifehouse that is really really great. The version that's like in the movie is so much better than the like album version, which is
mhm.
too bad. But I also do really love the the version of Ever Fall in Love by Pete Yorn, which I thought was great as well.
No, they had a lot of really cool ones, and it was crazy. Smash Mouth was actually one of the last minute additions to that soundtrack. They did it
Mm.
for super cheap compared to what they would normally be getting paid because they liked the idea. Like I listened to a behind the scenes podcast not too long ago about the making of Shrek, and that was one of the things that kind of came together for them last minute was getting Smash Mouth to do that song because they're like, "Hey, we really like what you did. Can you
Mm.
do this again?"
Yeah,
They're like, "It was fun. We'll do it." So that's pretty cool. And then so my last one in this time around was Peyton Parrish doing "I'll Make a Man Out of You." So just how crazy to have like Viking punk grunge covering Donny Osmond. Like
I mean, I feel like if there was a song that was like tailor made for someone like Peyton Parrish, it's that song.
yeah,
So
I think that's like of all of his, like this one feels like the most right because when he's singing those lyrics, they don't feel out of place. And a lot of the ones he does, even though they sound great, the lyrics can sound funny. So that's
yeah,
why I really like this version. And Mulan's one of my favorites, and I absolutely adore the soundtrack from it. So it was fun to discover Peyton Parrish and have him do all these cool songs from movies that I love.
I believe Peyton Parrish made both of our lists, but
I
hey,
like seriously though, like
there's
I'm just still floored by that being such an overlap because he's so obscure.
yeah. So as I mentioned, Rufus Wainwright's version of Hallelujah from Shrek. Could have picked a lot of versions of this song, but I ended up picking this one. So nothing more to say about that. My next one is a rendition of "I Will Survive" by Cake. Of all the artists
Love it.
to do a
Hmm.
cover of this song and in such a kind of quirky and just different way. Um,
Yeah. This was a hard cut for me. I had it on my initial list because I remember when that album came out and didn't know this was on it when I bought it because I got it for Going the Distance, I
yeah.
think was the main song that had come out on that album. It was either that or was it their first album that had this on it or their second one? Because I remember going to get the album and then being surprised this was on it because there was only one song they had because it was either that or Short Skirt, Long Jacket. Because I went for a specific song and then discovered this and was like, oh, this is so cool that they did I Will Survive. Because it was one of those where when you see it on the track list, you're like, oh, they just have a song called I Will Survive. And you don't expect it to actually be the cover.
Right.
Like I remember thinking like, okay, cool. Like, because when you used to get a CD when you didn't know what was on it, you'd look and like, okay, you'd see all these names and you might pick a name that sounded funny or interesting. But this was one where I 100% was not expecting it to be a cover and was pleasantly surprised because it is such a cool version. Like you're right, it's different, it's quirky. Like because it's like it kind of stops and starts almost. Like, it's not like, I don't wanna say it's not smooth because it is a song and it's musical, but it does kinda it feels like like how they're singing and everything, it's just, like, jumpy, but in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I've got one more. Okay. So, look, I understand that the UB40 version of Can't Help Falling in Love with You is not like the definitive version for most people because it's not the Elvis version. And I understand that. This is my definitive version of the song. I love this version of this. It's very 90s. It's very
Oh my
of the
gosh,
time.
yes.
And considering that UB40, like most of their hits are covers of stuff, because between this and Red Red Wine and Baby I Love Your Way, which is sometimes not incorrectly associated with them, but it's by somebody else. But I love this version of Can't Help Falling in Love with You. It is it's so different from the original version. It's very poppy and ska-y reggae
It
sounding,
yeah.
just a mashup of all these different things. I first heard this song when I think it was either a trailer, it was in the movie Fools Rush In.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I really like
I'm
this.
pretty sure it was all over the trailer because you could not stop hearing that song when the movie came out.
Hmm.
And you're right, it is so different. It's so funny how a song that's been covered by so many amazing artists can still find something different to do with it so many years later. Because you got to figure this song had been being covered for 30 years at that point.
Hmm.
Because I mean, it'd been covered almost from the beginning. So the fact that you get a cappella versions, you get, instrumental versions, you get so many versions of the song, and then to have UB40 do that and have it still just be so drastically different is
Hmm.
kind of crazy and cool.
Yeah, agreed. All right. What is your next three?
My next one is the In This Moment cover of Blondie's Call Me. I love
Mhm.
Maria Brink. She's got such a cool voice. They've done a lot of covers. I mean, they've done like Radiohead's Creep and Closer is one of their more famous covers that they've done. They've got an awesome version of In the Air Tonight, but I think this is one of the first covers I ever heard them do, and I think it's probably one of their first actual songs I remember, like, associating with the band,
Mhm.
and it's really cool because it's, like, hard and upbeat, and like I said, I just love Maria Brink's voice. She's so cool. She's done a lot of cool duets with, like, other bands, and like I just always enjoy when I hear her doing anything. So like that, but this version, like I love, like it's a Blondie song. It's fun, and to have it have this like hard rock cover is really neat because
Mhm.
again, they're different, but they're still very much the same vibe going on with it. So I like that it's one of those that's the same but yet so different. So my next one's like totally crazy different too. So and it was also the first song I heard from this artist. So back in the 80s, launching a soap star from Australia to stardom was Kylie Minogue doing Locomotion, a song from the 60s by Little Eva.
Mhm.
I think it's so crazy. Like, that song was 20 years old at that point. She's really only known for being on, a soap opera at this point in her career. And, she's like, I'm going to launch a singing career. Let's
Yeah.
cover like like just I want to like I'd love to know what room she's sitting in with someone that's like, "Hey, you know what song you should do?"
Yeah.
Like it's such an odd choice. But it's like so associated with the 80s though if you think about it. Like that and
It
physical, like
well, and it's funny because she didn't like really break out until like the early 2000s with
right, like here at least, yeah. Like no one I didn't really like I knew the song and everything. Like she had done other covers, but yeah, you didn't really notice her until 2000s, which is crazy.
Mhm.
So, it's just funny that she did a couple of covers in the 80s and like kind of got her career going, but like 20 years later like we're kind of hearing about her in America again. But yeah, she's got like I like her vibe and I like that it stayed kind of 80s,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool cuz I love
Mhm.
80s stuff. So, I kind of always appreciated that even her newer stuff was still kind of it had that hint of 80s to it. And it's like fun, bouncy music. I've got several of her songs on like workout mixes and stuff because they just kind of pump you up and keep you going. So, and my next one is where I actually do have my Billie Jean cover, but I did the Chris Cornell one, which is
Uh,
amazing. And I actually had a hard time choosing between his cover of Billie Jean and his cover of Prince's Nothing Compares because both of them are amazing.
mhm.
He had such a great voice, just such a talent. And I love all the acoustic stuff that he was kind of doing there near the end of his career. He's got a lot of cool acoustic versions of different stuff, but the Billie Jean one, you can really just hear the lyrics more in this one. It's just him and a guitar. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great, great pick. Like Chris Cornell is another one. I don't want to say I don't like him. It's just I don't actively listen to him, but I appreciate all the stuff that, if it happens to come on, I will always listen to it. And yeah, just
I mean, he did one of my favorite Bond songs because I love the Casino Royale. Like, I thought that was a great kickoff to like the Daniel Craig era of Bond. I mean, we talked about it last time, but yeah, I love his sound and I liked the like not just the sound of his voice, but the sound of his music being like distinctive and again very much of that kind of time in alternative like rock kind of sound.
Mhm.
But yeah, and all the different things he did with the different groups did it with, and then that, like I said, the end of his career with the doing a lot of this acoustic solo stuff was great.
Yeah.
So what have you got left? Because I got three more.
All right. I got five left, so I'll do my next three, and then you do your last three, and then I got my last two. So, okay. So all three of these are related to movies because of course they are.
Because why wouldn't they
So
be with us?
so I mentioned before when you mentioned Orgy's Blue Monday that I had a song on here that was a rock version, like a alternative version of a 80s song, and I have In the Air Tonight by Non-Point. And
Good pick.
it's so different from the original version. And I first saw this in the Coach Carter sound, or I don't think it was on the album, but it was in the
Like the
trailer.
Yeah, I think it
And
was like the music inspired by because it's not actually on the official soundtrack, I don't think, because I have it on one of my Spotify playlists and it's not from the soundtrack,
mhm,
which is weird because I swear that's where I remembered hearing it too.
yeah, so love this version. It's really good. Like this is one where like if you're looking to get pumped up, like yeah, this is a good one to
And
pick.
with so many covers of that song, it's another one that it's cool to find a different version. Because
Yeah.
like I said, even though In This Moment did it, it wasn't vastly different from the Phil
Mhm.
Collins version. Like it
Right.
was cool, but it wasn't like, oh, this is so different. It still was kind of slow and like I could still see Crockett and Tubbs like cruising the Miami Strip while listening to it.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's definitely different.
Yeah. So my next one of my favorite movies of all time is 10 Things I Hate About You. I love 10 Things I Hate About You. And it's the soundtrack is filled with all kinds of covers.
Yep.
And I ended up picking the Letters to Cleo version of I Want You to Want Me, which that's another one that has been done like a zillion different times. I I like this version because, having the female lead for that is really great. But like would I have picked another version from this, or would I have picked another version of this song, or of this from this soundtrack
From the
if it was
soundtrack. Yeah.
available on Spotify? Probably, but I did want to include that because I do love 10 Things I Hate About You, and I do love that
Hmm.
album too.
Yeah. No, that had a great soundtrack for
Hmm.
sure. An unexpectedly good movie, like honestly.
Unexpected good movie, and
Like
also,
I can still watch that anytime and not be like, why am I watching this teen movie from the 90s? Like I
well,
love it.
so I used to, when I was in high school, I worked at Michael's Arts and Crafts. And in the break room, we had a TV, one of those old tube TVs that are like on the rolling cart with the VCR.
That like
And
hums even when it's off.
yep. And we had three movies that we could watch. Two of them were training videos, and one was 10 Things I Hate About. So, and the funny thing is that everybody would watch it so much that whenever you would put it in, it was always at a different part. And like,
That's awesome. Yeah, that
so
movie came out right after I had read Taming of the Shrew, so it was kind of perfect for me
good timing
because I
for
was
that.
like, "Yay!
Mm,
I actually understand the story better now.
yeah.
It's been
So
related to me."
so you mentioned a rule where you said you're not going to pick any songs that were like musical renditions. And all three of my next three songs break that rule. Like,
Well, like I said, I broke it with Peyton Parrish because I do consider a song from a Disney like that's a musical in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
But yeah, I
So,
was just it was like one of the only ways to kill a big chunk of my list without being like agonizing over what song to hit.
mhm, yeah.
But like I'm kind of hoping you have a couple of things on here that I'm thinking about.
Well, we'll see. So, because this last one for this finals for my penultimate set, I guess it's from Moulin Rouge. It's the Ewan McGregor version of Your Song, and because you understand pretty quick that Ewan McGregor can sing in Moulin Rouge when he first sings like "The Hills Are Alive" with the Sound of Music, which
Yes.
which that part
Unexpected treat.
that part that part is ridiculous in the movie, but when when he starts like quoting this song is like it's a little bit funny, this feeling inside, and then when he just stops and starts singing "My Gift Is My Song," like even I, as like a dude who was like kind of on a pseudo date with a girl, like perked up and be like, "Good sir, you have my attention."
Right.
And
It's like, you've got some skills, buddy. Like,
yeah,
why did we not know you could sing before?
yeah. So
No, that's a great exception to a rule to make right there. Like
yeah.
that's a great pick.
So all right, give me your final three.
So, even though they did a cover of George Michael's Faith that kind of got them noticed, I chose Limp Bizkit doing The Who's Behind Blue Eyes. I love this version. I mean, it's The Who, so not everyone's gonna like a cover being done,
Hmm.
especially from a band like Limp Bizkit. But I really like this version. Like, you realize that Fred Durst actually can sing. He's not
He
just a
actually
screaming,
could,
yelling guy.
yeah.
He's got a voice,
Hmm.
And I thought this was cool for them to do something slower and to do something that really did showcase that he can sing and not just like shout at a mic. So it was very unexpected, but I really appreciated that they did a cover like this when they were so known for everything being so much harder and heavier.
So kind of in the similar vein of, you know, Fred Durst could sing like the first like one this song is definitely one that I was like, yeah, Fred Durst actually has got some talent instead of like just screaming to a
Yep.
microphone. When when he sang the version of Outside with Stained, that was another
Oh
one
my
I
gosh.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, you can sing, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that duet. Like those two bands doing that together is great. Yeah, that's a good one. My next one, again, vastly different. That's what I love about this list. DJ Sammy in 2002 covering
Love
Ryan
this.
Adams' 83 Heaven.
Love this version.
Could
Love
not
this
go to a
song.
club and not hear this song when it came out. It
Mhm.
was so cool to have. I feel like it's when like 80s songs started getting like dance kind of covers because you also had like
Mhm.
Boys of Summer was getting like a more upbeat
Mhm.
it wasn't a dance song, but the
It was
Ataris
just
did it.
it
So
was
it's like a
just more
punk rock,
way more.
upbeat. Yeah. So you were starting to get all these cool covers of 80s songs like that were slower songs but being done in upbeat dance, like straight up dance in this one, like remixes. But yeah, it was just I think it was the beginning of like what was really cool there for a few years with like, hearing a lot of songs from like my childhood being kind of revamped and introduced to a new audience, and I thought that was cool. And like how crazy, like I would never if you had told me I was going to walk into a club and hear Heaven, like I would have been like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like,
Yeah.
which I'm sure I probably said when I walked in and heard it.
So this to me is very college
Oh
for me.
yeah.
It reminds me of college.
Hmm.
So there's a version of Listen to Your Heart by
Hmm. Yeah.
DHT that both of those were hard cuts
Yep.
for this. Even like it's not like quite college because it was before because it was more like 90s, but like even Nikki French's version of Total Eclipse of the Heart as
Hmm.
well. It's like, yeah, like we're in
Well,
an
there were
era where
Foreigner covers too. What was there was a Foreigner song being like Cold as Ice
Mhm.
was another one that you'd hear a lot. Like it was a cool time to get a lot of these cool dance covers of 80s songs because they
Yeah.
were just so unexpected, but it's fun when you hear something familiar in that setting. So and then my last one is probably my favorite on the list, and it's Guns N' Roses doing Knocking on Heaven's Door. I mean, just it's Guns N' Roses. You've got the amazing guitar solos in it. You've got kind of the backup choir toward the end. Like it's such a cool version, and you're doing a Bob Dylan song, but making it so very much your own with all this different stuff going on, and it's Guns N' Roses. Like it's cool that this was released three different ways though. So like this song originally, it was a live version that was on the Welcome to the Jungle 12-inch record single.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't part of a proper album at the beginning. It was they did a live version. It was just included on the 12-inch record because usually those would just have a couple of songs on them. So then that was in like 87. So like in 90 they did a studio version for the Days of Thunder soundtrack. So and then that was so popular that they put it on the Use Your Illusion 2 album the year later. So
Hmm.
I think it's kind of cool that like that's the story of a cover that works. Like, they put it out there and everyone's like, "Yeah, this is freaking kick ass." And then, "Oh, hey, it's in a movie. You know what? Like, this is totally going on our album." And it's on every greatest hits album you're ever gonna find of Guns N' Roses. So, it's just I love it.
Yeah, that if that was another cut for me, and it's one that if it would have ended up on my list, I think the only thing I would have said is no notes.
Yeah,
Just
it's perfect. It's
yeah.
perfect.
Okay, my final two songs, they're from TV shows. And the I did pick a Glee song. And
I like, it was hard
I
not to. They're
it's it's
amazing.
it's very hard not to. And it also is very hard to narrow down which Glee songs to choose because there's a lot
Mhm.
of great versions of them. There's
Oh
a
my gosh.
okay, let's acknowledge two things. Number one, there's a lot of straight garbage like for Glee versions.
There's a lot of
That
filler, yeah,
there's a lot of filler and there's a lot of ones that don't make sense from a story standpoint,
for
and they
sure.
were just clearly in there just to, sell music. And I also want to acknowledge that Glee as a show is also problematic in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
very.
And
I mean,
and
you're there for the music, you're not there for the story. You can't be. You
you
cannot be there for the crazy ass storylines.
so I was there for the storyline maybe the first half of season one.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
it. And then from there, like
I feel like
Glee,
it's a show where they realized, "Oh, everyone's here for the music. Let's just focus on
mhm,
that." And then they had to spend all the money on that.
yeah.
You're spending all your time, you're spending all your practice, you're spending all your choreography. Like, I could see why that's what happened with the show
Yeah.
because it started
And
strong.
And I'm one of those people who thought that Glee should have ended when Corey Monteith died. Like,
Mhm.
there's no way that you could have that show without him. And it unfortunately showed
Yeah,
after he
definitely.
passed away. So picking something, I only had one rule when it said like I can only have one Glee song on here, is that I'm not picking Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah,
I'm just
I was about
not.
to say, you can't pick Don't Stop Believin'.
You can't pick Don't Stop Believing. So
But the real
instead,
question is, did you pick a mashup?
no, I did not pick a mashup. And I actually didn't pick a song from New Directions either.
What?
Which again
Oh, now I got
sounds
guesses.
okay. Okay, I'll let you guess.
Is it Uptown Girl?
No, same group, but
Right? Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
it's Teenage Dream. Like
Oh, yeah.
so first of all, what a great introduction to Crease or
I
Chris
love him.
um,
Love him.
as part of the core cast. Also, a this is a taking take putting your own spin on a song that is already popular and doing something different with it as well.
Mm.
It's an a cappella
Oh, yeah.
version. It's really great. Great lead vocal. So,
And he's singing it through crying, which is just insane the amount of talent that guy's got.
right.
Like, because he doesn't, and who knows how many times he sang it to get that final cut for the show.
Mhm.
But I just, yeah, it was so good. Like, I honestly think I only kept watching because I loved when he did the duet with Matt Bonner or Bomber from of the Duran Duran songs. They did "Hungry Like a
Oh,
Wolf" Rio, which
and
was
real yeah.
freaking amazing. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to that because the two of them together are so good. But
Mhm.
yeah, Darren Criss, like seriously, what a talent that I don't feel like we see enough of in general.
I
Like
agree.
he popped up in the Muppets Haunted Mansion. He does a song in the graveyard,
Hmm.
and it's like, man, why is this guy not in more stuff? Like like he did that Armani serial
Yeah,
killer freaking that
he was
he
Andrew Cunanan and
yes, which he was really good in that, but, like, the fact that he's got all his singing and dancing skills and we just don't get to see them much is
which
yeah, that is such a great pick.
which is which is interesting because like I don't know. I feel like somebody who needs to go back to those roots as well. It's like, dude, you can sing, you can dance. Like, you should go back to doing that.
Yeah.
Zac Efron
Yeah,
needs to
oh
go
my gosh,
back
I was gonna say the same thing.
to doing more stuff like that.
Those 2
Oh,
just need to stick with their singing and dancing roots because, like, Zac Efron in Greatest Showman, oh my gosh, chef's kiss. Like,
mhm,
I love every song he does in that.
yeah. My last song. So I I wanted to try to find something that had like some gravity to it. It felt like a turning point in a show. So I picked Noah Reed's version of Simply the Best from Schitt's Creek.
Yes.
And uh,
Oh.
it's first of all, it's a beautiful version of the
Mm.
song. It's again just different, but also it felt like a turning point in the show. And it's also adorable as
It
well.
really is. Like I love Myra making, the shits be quiet so she could hear it. She's like, my son's being serenaded by his love. Like
Hmm.
let's stop here.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous and it really did I think you're right. Like it really was a pivotal moment for the show when he did it. And I think it's cool that they actually had him sing since he does sing.
Hmm.
Like he's not just an actor, that is something that he does.
Yeah. So so yeah, that is my list.
There's some amazing picks in there. Like I can't believe we had overlap where we did, but still had
I
some like vastly different picks.
yeah. So last question, as always, if this was an actual CD, what would be the album cover?
So I want it to be like notable, like recognizable people from each band, like on opposing sides of the cover, just kind of looking like they're about to like do a tug of war. Like we have like kind of caricature versions of them, like maybe almost looking like rotoscopy or something, but have them doing like tug of war, like who did it better.
Good call for that. I again just very, very generic for mine. I am picking a scene from the Broadway musical Rent, where Collins is singing "I'll Cover You" with Angel. So it's one of those. If you know, you know, and if you
That's
don't,
cool.
well,
That's so
that's
cool.
that's on you. So, well, Patrice, thank you very much for your time. If people want to hear more of your playlist, or if they want to find you and talk to you about your music or anything pop culture related, where can the people find you? And do you have anything you want to plug?
I am Teely Fox Talks anywhere that I'm at because I'm not everywhere, but I hang out on Twitter a little. I can't call it X. My brain won't do it.
Nope.
But I've got teelyfoxtalks.com should actually have some content on it by the time this comes out. So it's just kind of general me being nostalgic for pop culture stuff. And then, obviously I pop up on Sif Pop, especially now that we're relaunching the BEC. You get to hear from us a little more regularly again. And I've got my semi monthly musings on documentaries when I find something relevant.
Is when is your website coming out?
It should be like by literally like in the next like week or so, my husband's gonna have it actually up because right now it's not on there.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So I will be sure to add that in. And then when I, you know, blast this on social media, probably like the weeks after the fact, because I suck at social media, I will be sure to plug the website as well.
Appreciate it.
So links to both of our playlists are in the episode description. So check that out. And I hope you enjoy these cover versions. And let us know, what did we miss? Because we missed a lot. And like I shouldn't say that we missed it. There were a lot of things on the cutting room floor. So
For
did you
sure.
did you make a quote Snyder cut of
I did.
this?
So if you find me on Spotify, you can see the very extended Snyder cut too.
All right. So check that out and let us know what we didn't pick. Well, my friends, the time has come to end this episode of Mix CD. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website soon to be out at spdmcrew.com. You can follow our playlist on Spotify and Apple Music at Mike Hilty. Shout out to High Flyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at highflyercreative.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, no matter what happens now, you shouldn't be afraid because I know today has been the most perfect day I've ever seen.